Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Deez, this is my workshop, and today we've got a treat. I bought an accessory for the mill, and after the last few projects, I thought it's time to get an X-axis power feed for the mill, for the Precision Matthews mill. I decided to just buy one that is for the mill. It's made for the mill. It'll bolt right on, rather than try to make one myself or mess with that. So that's what we ordered. It probably wasn't the cheapest option, but I wanted it to go with the mill. I wanted it to be from the same manufacturer, and that's what we got. So we're going to do an unboxing of that. We'll install it on the mill, and that's what this video will be about. So let's move forward. Let's unbox this and see it for the first time. I haven't opened this yet, so we're going to look at it together. First thing we'll do is take the packing slip out of here and check it out. Standard packing slip. It's got the parts on it. X-axis table power feed for the PM-25MV. Put that over there. Let's get this box opened up. It's a little heavier than I thought it would be, actually. Hopefully it's not this huge honking behemoth that hangs off the side of the mill. I've only got so much space, but regardless, we're gonna put it on there and figure it out. Okay, so it's a box in a box. So they've got this power feed. So here's what you get in the box. It is a power feed for PM-25MV. That's the mill that I have. It's much larger than I anticipated, but it does have a motor on it, and you got to mount it to the side of your lathe. It looks like, just so you know, it looks like it hangs down. That configuration, if this was the orientation, would not work for my setup. The milling machine sitting on a workbench, and if this thing was to have to mount vertically, it would just it wouldn't work. So I contacted Precision Matthews. I said, I think I'm gonna have to return this thing unless it could be mounted differently. And they said, no, it'll mount horizontally, it'll be fine on the workbench. And they emailed me a PDF file with their instructions on how to mount this thing, which I've printed out. The instructions in here, which I briefly looked at, I had to pause and kind of go back to reevaluate things because I didn't know if this was going to work. I thought about maybe returning it because it's so big and the way that I thought it mounted, but they said it's for this machine, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and go through with setting this thing up. But I want everybody watching this to realize I bought this thing with my own money. This is not a partnership or sponsorship. It was just a power feed for the mill that I got. So I bought it from Precision Matthews, so I knew the thing would fit. It comes with, to be honest, it's an Alas, Alsace. It's not, they don't make it, they're rebranding it. They just put their sticker over the actual brand. So you might be able to Google Alsace or ALSAS. That's who makes this thing. They just stick their Precision Matthews sticker over it. So they're just rebranding this stuff and selling it. Again, no affiliation with these guys. They didn't give me a discount. They didn't offer me anything for it. I'm just giving you an open, honest opinion. I still believe Precision Matthews does sell a quality product, but I'm giving you a fair assessment of what I got from them that I paid for. This is what came with it, this goofy manual. It's kind of difficult to read. I mean, it's not difficult to read, but the way that this thing tells you to mount it, it's vertical. And that's why I called them back. I said, I can't use that thing. It's not going to work. And they said, oh, you must be looking at the instructions that came with it. I'm like, well, of course I was. Why wouldn't I? So they emailed me these. These are much simplified. I think these are going to make a lot more sense on how to install this thing. So we're going to get on with it. I'm going to go back to original plan, install this thing using their instructions, and we'll see how it goes. So let's continue on here with taking out what's in the box. Hopefully this thing will work. If not, I'm going to pay the 20% restocking fee and lose money and ship this thing back. Let's see if we can get it mounted to here and see how it works. I will have to move my steel plate that I use in between the equipment. I'm going to lose that workspace because of this, but I think in the long run, I'm going to really like having a power feed if this thing goes in and works like it's supposed to. So when you open the box, you get a manual that apparently just is really a parts list, things like that. You're going to go to their website, you're going to want to print out their actual install guide. It comes with an adapter gear because you're going to take one of the handles off. I'm going to put this on the left. It's got a guard, safety guard, I think, to go, probably covers this gear underneath. It comes with some stops. These are going to be bump stops, I believe, for, there's a switch, I think, when the table, you set the table where you want, and you can have this thing automatically stop as it gets to a certain point. So those will need to be installed. Don't think any of this is terribly difficult. A couple cap head screws to install something. There is a mounting adapter, hunk of steel with some more cap head screws. We'll find out where that goes. It's got an adapter plate with a rapid switch. I assume this is going to go on the end, and then everything will kind of mount underneath here. Set that aside. Some packing. And finally, the actual assembly itself. Again, this thing it's pretty beefy. It's larger in person. I'm telling you. If there's a takeaway from this video, this thing's big. Look at my hand. I mean, this thing's going to be hanging off the side of your mill like this. So you got to have the space for this. Keep that in mind. But we're going to try. We're going to try to make this thing work. It'll plug into a power source, of course, and then, of course, you got your switch, and that's where your bump stops are going to come in, I believe, you know, to bump and stop it as needed. I think what we're going to do, get this plastic off of here, and we'll go get the lathe area or the mill area set up to where we can get this installed, and we'll get your camera mounted over there so you can check out what we're doing, and we'll just go through this together. Here's where this thing's going to mount. This thing is going to mount horizontally on the left-hand side of my table. It's going to stick out quite a bit. I'm going to lose at least half this space just with this thing centered. Hopefully, I think it'll be fine to fully travel left and right once this thing is mounted up. But I'm going to lose this area as workspace. I'll still be able to set things here as I'm working on the lathe or the mill, but it's, you know, if you're going to make your machine bigger, you're going to lose workspace. Keep that in mind if you buy one of these things. It does consume benchtop space. But I want the power feed, and I bought the thing, and I don't want to pay 20% restocking fee. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed with mounting this thing, and we're going to continue to test it. First thing we need to do is get this mounted over here. Take this rubber mat off for now. So it's going to mount here. I need to get this wheel off of here. It's like 17 millimeter will work here. So we got to take this off. Take that off, and there we go. We'll get this cleaned up. There's a key on there. Don't want to lose that. Install the adapter casting to the mill table. That's going to be this guy here. So I believe we need to loosen these two. This is two pieces. I think we need to loosen this. Put this back on here so you can see. There we go. There we go. Okay. So these are two different pieces. Set this one aside. This is the adapter casting they're talking about. And that is going to go in here. I need to loosen this up. Not real big fan of it. This has got pinch points. It's going to clamp itself on here, but it is what it is. It's how it's designed. We're going to put that in here. We want to be careful not to over tighten the casting. It's probably going to need to be centered on here depending on where this piece goes. It'll be like this, and ultimately where the motor itself, the housing itself, lands. So I'm going to snug these up. I fully anticipate that we will have to adjust these later on. The instructions say don't over tighten it because you can split the casting. I believe that because, you know, you're putting pressure on a cast material. There. So it's on there, but I'm going to have to adjust that. For now, we'll just put it like that. Next thing, we want to, I think we need the adapter, the lead screw extender and driven gear. Install the driven gear number 2 on the extender. Well, this is a one piece, so in the instructions it actually states there's 2 different pieces. In this, see, here's the first piece. In this case it's a single piece, which makes it a little easier for me. So we are going to get this installed. It's a little disappointing there is no keyway in this thing. It's just got set screws. That's a minus. I don't like that. So there's some feedback. I don't like the set screws. I'd rather this thing have a keyway in it if it was actually designed for this. So I'm going to have to take that keyway, the key out of there. So that's something I don't like. But this is going to go on here. Like that. And they say to tighten the single set screw. Well, there's 2 set screws. So the idea is to measure the distance between this, the mounting flange, the mounting plate is 2 halves. We need to measure the distance between the edge of the mounting plate that is going to be on the lathe and the edge of the gear that it will be to. And for me, it's 1 3/4 inch. 1 3/4 to the beginning of that gear. So we're going to mount this plate back here, and we need to make sure that from this face, where it will seat up against the other mount, we're at 1 3/4 to the beginning of this gear. So that's the idea with what we're doing measuring, because once you get this thing mounted on here, these 2 gears need to marry up in order to function properly. We need to get this mounted on here. It did come with some mounting screws. Let's get these out of here. Just a couple cap head screws. See if I have a right sized Allen. All right, so we'll just get these in here. There's one. And here is the other. And then we want to get this going. Kind of hard to see, but you know, this is pretty self-explanatory what we're doing here. We're just mounting this thing. So I measured this, and oddly enough, this thing, if you push this down flush, the distance we're looking for is 1 3/4. So it's really ready to go. I just need to get this as flush down and level as I can in order to mount that up properly. There is this to contend with, but honestly it fits in there very well. So I'm just going to mount these flush as I can on both sides, and they'll be ready to go. So that does kind of make it a little easy. Let's get these snug down best we can so we can get started with that. So that takes care of that. Now what we need to do is mount this to the bracket. We really just need to make sure that wherever we put this, it clears this bracket. This pulley needs to clear the two edges of this so it doesn't rub and make noises. So the next thing to do is get this put over here and see what it looks like. We will probably have to move that for sure. We'll start right there. Okay, a little update. I've got this kind of ready where it needs to go. The directions don't accommodate for whatever these two pins are. I really honestly thought those would be like what you would mount power feed to, something smaller than this. But in the end, what I needed to do was bring this pulley out farther on the shaft in order to accommodate the housing for the motor to clear these two pins. They're threaded. I don't know what they're for, but they're in the way and they don't allow these two notches, these two flanges to go down. They hit right there. So I brought everything out. I measured it from the distance from the flange, about 2 1/4, and then I measured from the distance here. Now we've got this flange brought out about 2 1/4. Now let's proceed to trying to get this set back on here again. And again, this will need to go back or forth, you know, one way or the other. But for now, I'm just trying to just get this thing mounted, and then I want this gear and this gear to be centered. So let's try that again. So far, so good. That's much better. It's gonna have to come. Let's loosen that up. There we go. It's gonna have to go one way or the other. There we go. Oh, yeah. It's gonna have to come even farther yet. Oh, let's see. About. Okay. It's got to come out farther yet. It's a little finicky to install. Just so you know what I'm looking at, you can't see that down there. What it's doing now, it's hitting right here. So I got to bring this thing out even farther, about 1/8 of an inch. And we'll try it again. I'm going to do that off camera. When I get this thing set on there, I'll bring it back. All right, we got this thing mounted. I think it's spinning as free as it should. And we're ready to move on to the next steps. I've got this adjusted piece of paper, about 4 thou thickness, where the two gears meet up. The right-hand gear turns. There's some gear noise, but there's two gears meeting. So I'll grease those later. But for now, I got this mounted securely. And as you can see, this thing's pretty big. It adds every bit of almost a foot, 11 inches length onto your milling table. So be aware of that if you buy one of these things. It sticks out substantially. But again, there's a motor in here. It's got to do stuff. You know, you either want one or you don't. And if you get one, you got to have the real estate for it. We'll put the shield on underneath later. That is back here. That's just to protect from the gears, keep grease and stuff where it needs to be. I'm not going to put that on until we're done. Now it says to connect to power, and we want to run it slowly in both directions. And we can try to raise and lower it if it's, you know, but it's not going to be, and it says right here, don't expect totally silent drive. They're straight cut gears. Okay, I'm going to plug this in. We're going to slowly move it back and forth. The rapid switch I do not have plugged in yet. We're going to wait on that. And we're going to see how this thing works. Here's your speed. Well, it's not doing anything right now. So is there a switch? Is there something not right? Let me go back to the instructions and find out. I thought it would have lit up and done something, but I'm missing something. I'll have to check into this. I thought, so there's supposed to be a power LED light that comes on. This does not come on. I'm gonna have to contact Precision Matthews on this. This light doesn't come on, but when I turn this on, there's power here. I got this turned down as low as it'll go. Here's to the right, forward. So we're moving this all the way across. Moves nice and slow. I do need to grease those gears, but that's working well. So we're going to run this all the way across and all the way back. Disengage it. Let's go backwards. Okay. And there, it's off. So it does work. It functions. We got it in there. It moves the table back and forth. The next thing we need to do is mount the rest of these cords, kind of tame them down so they're not just everywhere. I'm not sure what to do with this. I'm not a big fan of this cord laying there like that. But we'll get this put in here and button everything up. The next thing is to install the limiting switch. And what we need to do is take this indicator point off here in order to do that. There's a mounting bracket. So let's take this off first. I don't use it anyway because it's underneath the vise. I can't really see it. And it's not usable at the moment anyway. So let's take that off. Okay, so this is going to go on here like this. And there are two screws. Hopefully you can see that. There's one. I'll get this other one started. So it's a little mounting bracket for that. It's a stop switch. This switch, which we'll have to route the wires later, will come over here and it mounts just underneath here so that as the stops come across, it can turn those on and off. And this isn't absolutely necessary, but it's going to be handy if you're working on something and you want it to automatically stop. You don't have to just sit here and kind of babysit it. You don't walk away from equipment, but you can actually. All right, so we want to get that mounted there. I don't know if that's too low. I think that'll work. We'll just start there. We can always adjust it if we need to. So we're just gonna put these stops on. I don't know how often I'll use these, but I want to get them on there because they came with the kit. Might as well. And they just go into these slots and they can be stops for this part here. I need to remove these bump stops, which I don't use. If I can get them in there. There we go. This was the one I needed to get in there before I put all that on. I'm just going to put it all the way back as far as I can. If I ever want to use it, it's here and ready to go. Snug that down. And then of course we have this one. And it goes in here. Just snug it up a little bit. I suppose I could test it here. Let's put this back on the switch. What we're looking for is this to shut off and clear everything, of course. Well, I would think that would have shut off. But it didn't. Why didn't that shut off? Well, I'll play with that off camera, but you get the idea. You got these two stops. We're gonna have to play with that though. That needs to be more reliable than that. It did not shut off. Yeah. I'm gonna get everything cleaned up and we'll do a recap, but there's your install of the power feed for the PM-25MV Precision Matthews mill. I'm going to give you a close-up view of this now that it's installed. I do need to just make sure everything's snugged up nice and tight. I need to adjust the limiting switch. It's kind of a weird design. It's got a very flexible plasticky top. This is causing some of my problems having the vise here, but it should still click and turn it on and off as it needs. So I need to mess with that a little bit, but regardless, you know, we've got our stops here. It's optional to use, but I want to use it. I want to be able to use all the pieces that came with it. Show you, we got the gear mounted in there. If you get one of these things, just be aware that you will have to play with the distance between your mounted shaft and how far out your gear comes. Because if you look under here, you can see up there, you have a small minimal gap left and right where that has to fit in. In addition, this plate has to mount to here. So all of that will need adjustments based off of your lathe. Most of these PM-25MVs are going to be the same probably, but your lathe might be 1/8 of an inch that way or 1/4 inch. Who knows, right? It's got to do with the castings of the table. So take some time, take your time, play with that. The other thing is the height. You want to have about a 1/4 thou gap between the gear on the power feed and the gear on the lead screw. The other thing is when you tighten this portion down, you want to make sure back to front your y-axis is accurate, because there's also a minimal gap between this casting here from the back to the front. You don't want that rubbing. You don't want this gear rubbing on this piece here. So take your time, play with it, but it does all kind of fit together. It's not that difficult of an install. Just take your time. It works well. Flip her on. You can go forward. You got your speed. That's like a clutch. The click, that's normal. It goes. Turns your feed, your handle. You can speed it up, slow it down. You've also got your rapid switch. And then as it's going, if for some reason you need to stop it, you can just do that. Now, the clutch, it immediately stops. Like, so when you flip it the other direction, you're gonna hear a click, and that's the directional change, right? So, just wanted to show you how all that's working underneath before I put this guard on there. There's a guard that you put under there to keep the gear from getting into anything. Again, rapid switch, turn it off, speed it up, slow it down. But regardless, the thing works. It feels like it's built pretty solid. It does stick out, takes a lot of real estate, and eventually it will hit this wheel if I go too far that way. I could always move the lathe over a little bit if I needed to, but I don't ever travel. I don't anticipate needing to travel this X-axis too far anyway. There you go. Just want to give you a close-up look at that. That completes the unboxing of the X-axis power feed for the PM-25MV Precision Matthews benchtop mill. It's not a perfect kit, but it does bolt on. It's pretty easy to install, a little finicky at times, but for the most part, it bolts right on. There's a couple issues with it. I'm gonna go back to them and see what they have to say. The first thing was they didn't send their instructions. It came with the default instructions. There we go, which is not really for this particular lathe. It's just kind of some generic stuff. It does have a nice parts list in it. This is a rebranded. This is not something they make, but again, that's what Precision Matthews does. They buy stuff, source it from China, but they do go through it and make sure it's quality. This thing does work. It's a Alsas, A-L-S-A-S, but they put their sticker on it, Precision Matthews. Just full disclosure, I paid for this thing, so I'm going to tell you all about it. We unboxed it. We evaluated it. I had to go back to them. They gave me the good, proper manual. Again, that was a weekend, by the way. I'll hand it to them. Precision Matthews stands behind the products they sell. They're going to work with you to try to make sure that you're happy and satisfied and get you on the right track. And they did with me. We did get the setup done and complete. Let's go over here and I'll show you. But we do have it all set up. I think I'm going to reroute this cable underneath maybe that bracket there and just kind of reroute some of these cables. But there it is. You can see there's the table. It's 14 inches both ways, so 28 inches, 27-inch travel. But look at that thing. That's 11 inches wide from the end of the table to the end of the motor. Keep that in mind if you buy this thing. That thing hangs way the heck out. It works well. I just tested the switch, so I was showing you the switch earlier. This is just a cover. It works with the cover, but not very well because it wants to rock. And because I have my vise here, it causes some issues. So if I ever want to use the limiting switch, which I will someday, I'm going to actually take this plastic cover off. And then I tested it, and it works great with these bump stops for that. So that works really well. If we turn this thing on, again, here's the problem. There's no LED light. That should be on. That should be red or orange or green or something. You can't tell if that thing's on or off when you have a well-lit workshop. And who runs a mill in the dark? So that is what I was bringing up as a concern to Precision Matthews, but I wanted to show exactly what I was talking about. In addition to that, this cover for that gear, there's the gear. It does not fasten in here, it flops around. It's there, it's just a little metal shroud. I suppose I could modify it and screw it on, but regardless, this thing is built solid. It's got really positive gear changes. It just seems well built otherwise. But I wanted to share close up and what I'm talking about with that LED light. I have power. If we turn this thing on, you can see I got power, no light. And the switch works. And then if we turn it back, it immediately stops. And then there's a change gear. You'll hear a little clunk. I'm pretty sure that's normal. I'm not complaining about that. That's just so it can engage and go backwards. And again, here's the other stop. So if we take this plastic off and use these bumps, they actually work pretty well. It's got good speed. I mean, you're not going to mill that fast. And when it disengages immediately when you flip that to the middle. We can go back the other way. This thing's solid, by the way. The handle, everything it's built real tight, and it doesn't feel like a piece of junk. I will hand it to them for that. We'll get this thing centered up again. And there we go. The rapid switch works really nice. Let's, I'll show you that. So if it's going slow, works really well. So overall, I think it's a solid piece of equipment. I think it's built really well. The thing works well. Just remember, you got to have the real estate for this thing. Well, there you go, everybody. I'm going to summarize this video. This is the add-on for the Precision Matthews PM-25MV, the X-axis power feed add-on for this mill. This was purchased from Precision Matthews. It is actually a pretty solid unit. It's rebranded, All SAS or something, but regardless, they're going to stand behind it on their website. If you install it on this specific mill, they'll give you a 3-year warranty with it. Once you install it, the parts you will remove and have to put in a bin, like a storage compartment, is going to be your wheel, your handle. You no longer need that. You have a key for the shaft because that's not how the gear installs. It doesn't use a key. I would have liked for it to use a key. Just uses some set screws. Of course, the nut to keep that on. The center indicator on the table, you don't need that anymore because that's where your automatic stop switch is going to be. And then of course your little bump stops. These would allow you to stop it using some other, they go in this channel up front. Well, you're going to put your actual bump stops mechanisms in that channel. The install, pretty easy. If you have a mill anyway, you're going to be able to handle this install. It's a bolt-on component. Really required no modifications at all. The only complaints that I have, get this out of the way. The only complaints or concerns would be the power indicator. I just showed you a clip of that. It does work, it illuminates, but it's so faint that the only way to see it is if you have your room pitch dark. It's pointless because nobody should be running a mill in the dark. It just doesn't seem very safe to me. The other thing is the protective shroud underneath. It's not, it just almost looks like an afterthought. They included it. It does kind of cover the gear. So it is what it is, but I'm just giving you an honest feedback. As far as support, I've been talking to them about those two concerns. I mean, there's no problem. I can't just go to them and complain and say this thing's a piece of junk, because it's not. It actually works very well, or it seems very solid, and it does function. I was just bringing up some concerns to get their response. Their responses were, they responded on a weekend. I commend them for that. They did refer me to the technical support side for the for the two concerns that I had, and support. I responded back to support and told them my thoughts. But the person from the technical support, he did respond in the evening, which I commend him for. Didn't have to. He could have waited till the next day. He said that it wasn't an LED light. It was more of a bulb with more of an afterthought, I guess, from the control board. It illuminates a little. I said, well, then they shouldn't have put it on. I personally think it's more of a safety thing. If you leave that thing turned on, it's not part of the mill. You turn the mill off, that thing can still be on. If you are working with something, you don't realize it's on, and you bump that thing and it just takes off, that could be a safety thing. You really should, that indicator, if it was bright red, it would tell you, hey, this thing's on. Make sure you turn it off at the end of the day, or before you flip it into gear, turn it off or turn it on, or, you know, I think it's more of a safety thing. Same with that shroud. You know, it's an exposed gear. But then again, I'm not going to complain too much about the shroud thing, because you have to be safe with any of these. There's spinning parts. There's far more dangerous components to both of these machines. So I'm not complaining about Precision Matthews. I'm just giving you a little bit of feedback on the experience I had with that. Overall, they respond to any question you have, any inquiry. If you actually have a problem, I am quite certain that they would stand behind this. I haven't had a problem, which is number one, that's great. But if I did, I'm pretty sure they would stand behind it and either send a replacement part or probably go as far as they need to go to fix any concerns or issues that you have. So I'm going to do test cuts in a subsequent video, but I did test the power feed. Everything works great. The travel works good. It's a solid kit. The shifting the gears has a really positive feel to it. It seems very well built. Would I recommend it? Yeah, if you have the space, it's kind of large, but if you have the workbench space and you want an X-axis power feed and you've got this mill, that thing bolts right on, pretty much hassle-free. Precision Matthews is going to stand behind it. Again, I bought this stuff with my own money, so this is a totally honest review, which is why I'm including my experience with their support. But overall, I'd recommend it if you got one of these and you want a power feed. It works good. Hope you enjoyed. If you haven't subscribed, please do, and I hope to see you on the next one. Thanks for watching, everybody.